At the first battle of Bull Run, spectators picnicked to watch the day's events. And Wilmer McLean had his house raided and shot. This is Laughs from the Past, and that's what we're talking about today. What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining us again to discuss the Great War that wasn't civil, but was somewhat civil. A civil war. What's up, Jake? How you doing?
Hey, Jim, I'm good. You lost me a little in the intro, but that's okay.
It wasn't my best work.
It's all right. You pump faked. I've got a good story that we can segue to the Civil War.
What's your story?
So I just have to tell you because I have a loser moment. You saw I just posted on social media. Went to 7-Eleven, bought lotto tickets, Gatorade, on a rented scooter, like unshowered, unkempt, just not a great look. Doing normal Jakey bottoms out type stuff. But I come back, and there's a little pre-made salad from Trader Joe's in my fridge. And I grab said salad. It looked okay. It's like a Southwest, so there's some corn and stuff in there.
Yeah.
So I start eating it, and there's no, like, dressing package. And I'm like, okay, these normally come with a dressing thing, I think. It's not like I'm eating a ton of salads. But I see no dressing thing. So I go into the fridge, don't have any, like, human salad dressing, and come back to it, just eating it dry. Dry salad. I didn't stir it or anything, so some bites are just corn. Some are just, like, green beans. Some are just dry pieces of lettuce. So I start getting to the bottom, and there's a little bit of dressing. And it's like, it's kind of good. I'm like, okay, maybe I just did this wrong. And the dressing packet's at the bottom. So I'm like, oh, this is awesome. So I've got, like, half the salad left. I'm like, oh, I'm going to put some of the dressing in there. So I pick up the dressing at an angle because now it's kind of covered in dressing because I must have stabbed it at some point.
Okay.
So I'm angling at the salad, and so I poke it with the fork, and it just sprayed everywhere, all over the apartment, all over my dog. He's licking everything because it's covered in dressing. So that's my current state.
Salad war.
For the Battle of Bull Run.
The salad war of Denver.
The Great Salad War. It'll be a hilarious story by the time I'm a billionaire when this comes out, but...
Okay. So
I'm kind of down on myself, and if that gets reflected in the storytelling, I'm sorry.
All right, cool. Good to know. If this is your first episode of Laughs from the Past you're listening to, go back and listen to Season 2, Episode 1 and 2. They were intro to the Civil War, and then last week we talked about John Brown and Bleeding Kansas and how it all started. So today we're going to talk about the Battle of Bull Run and two funny things about the battle. I'm not going to break down the X's and O's and all that shit. The Confederates basically won the battle and made the Union realize this was not going to be a small skirmish. Lincoln had 75,000, that might be a wrong number, for 90 days of war. He thought it was going to be a 90-day war at most. It goes 4 years, and this was proof that, oh shit, this is a real thing.
Where is Bull Run? Where was Bull Run?
Virginia. So Bull Run is a little creek of water that ran down that they used as like a line. And the South calls this the Battle of Manassas. Same thing.
Okay.
Same thing. But it's in Virginia. So what happened was how we got to this point, just for a little bit of the history. Last episode, we talked about John Brown and the Harper's Ferry. So what happens, Jake? John Brown, before he's hung, everyone thought he was a crazy loon and a terrorist, but he speaks eloquently about how he wants slavery to end, how it needs to be over, blah, blah. And the North starts treating him after he dies. They're like, oh, he was actually correct. Like what he did was great. They start giving him a bit of a hero treatment, right? The South sees this as a major problem because what John Brown wanted to happen was the slaves to revolt and kill their masters.
Right.
So you can see how people in the South are thinking the North is telling our slaves to kill us, not just that they want to free them, but now they want them to wage war against us.
We've gone from bad guy to targeted.
Yes. So that's basically how this happened. So the South gets their armies ready to go because they're like, this is coming to a head. We got to be prepared. They get their armies ready to go. And Lincoln has to do something, and he's eager just to put this to rest, and he thinks, he can do that with battle. So once Lincoln gets troops ready, all the border states, Virginia, all of those places, Virginia, my brain's blank, they say, all right, we're joining the Confederacy now too. If you're going to pick up arms against us, I guess you leave us no problem, no question. Like we're in. So the South, the Confederacy, thanks Virginia for joining them so much they make it the capital of the Confederacy. They make Richmond the capital of the Confederacy.
Hilarious move.
Thank you. And then they all onward to Richmond was the thing. And all the troops went to Richmond because that's the border and close to Washington, D.C.
Right.
So this is kind of outside Washington and Virginia. They're outside, they're up there. And
Washington is not, D.C. is not the capital of the U.S. yet, right? We're still in Pennsylvania, Philly?
No, Washington's the capital.
Okay.
Yeah, Washington's
So we're going double capitals a couple miles apart.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Power play.
Yes.
I love that move by the South.
Yeah. So that's how that's how it came to.
That's like telling a big free agent, like, hey, come to our team. We're going to make you captain. We're going to make you the face of the franchise.
Yeah.
You're in, Virginia.
Virginia was a huge get for them, too, because they had the Virginia Military Academy, which Andrew Jackson was at. A lot of guys were at. Like, it was a big get once Virginia joined. All right. So now I'm going to read a little bit about the picnickers. Have you ever heard this tale, that people picnicked the Civil War? That
Only through you recently.
Okay. So you didn't know. So I had heard it before. I never really looked into it. All right. So I have source material here. Elizabeth Nix from history.com. She's going to walk us through the picnickers at the first battle of Bull Run. Okay. And then I have another tale that's even better for the second half of the show.
Love tales.
All right. On July 21st, 1861, Washingtonians trekked to the countryside near Manassas, Virginia, to watch Union and Confederate forces clash in the first major battle of the American Civil War, known in the North as the First Battle of Bull Run and in the South as the Battle of First Manassas. The military engagement also earned the nickname the Picnic Battle because spectators showed up with sandwiches and opera glasses. These onlookers, who included a number of U.S. congressmen, expected a victory for the Union and a swift end to the war that had begun 3 months before. Any thoughts? Picnic? Would you want to picnic a war?
Me? Not really. That doesn't do too much for me. I don't know. Kind of fun.
This was such an event in America. People were so excited about the war. Like there was parades in the South to watch the boys march off like proudly.
Right.
And Stonewall Jackson, Andrew Jackson, we'll get into a whole episode on him. He was like, why are you guys cheering? This is going to be hell. This is terrible.
Yeah.
But no one had a sense of the dangers of it. They just thought it was like for the glory.
It's really weird.
Very.
Like, I don't know if you're going to delve into this, but if the Union had won this, do people think it just would have been the end, or everyone's still just like, no, what's happening?
That's kind of what they thought. They thought it was going to be a quick end, and they really had no idea what was like happening.
Okay.
It'd been 100 years since a war on American soil. This was kind of a first. It's crazy. So anyway, also an interesting tidbit about the war. This was the first time mass transportation was used to get soldiers to the lines. They used trains to get the Confederates from one point to another.
Right.
Kind of cool. Like technology is playing a huge part.
Kind of nice.
Weird train ride.
Lot better to take the train to war than to have to walk to war.
Imagine if a civilian hopped on that train.
Oh, hey guys.
Oh, you guys going to war? Well,
where to?
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. I'm gonna catch some rest. So just don't talk to me, please.
I'm on my way to my siesta, but
so
enjoy that battle.
Enjoy the war.
All right. So Pierre G.T. Beauregard, he's a general. He's on the Confederate side. Andrew Jackson's on the Confederate side. This is the war in which Andrew Jackson gets the nickname Stonewall. More into that on an episode from him. The battle got off to a promising start for the Yankees. However, the Confederates soon called in reinforcements and counterattacked. Later that afternoon, Union troops, who like their opponents were poorly trained, began to withdraw. Some soldiers panicked and ran from the battlefield, and the spectators' amusing summer outing turned chaotic. Civilians hustled back to Washington along with the retreating Union troops. Some legislatures attempted to stem the tide. So, one part of this battle that's funny, I said I wouldn't get into X and O's. There was Union cannons, and at one point in the battle, they're just fighting over these two cannons. So the Union has them. Confederates overtake the cannons, right? And then the Union sends in their troops. It's like they take the cannons, and then the next takes the cannons, and they just go back and forth these two cannons for like a little bit.
Pretty ridiculous.
That's like a schoolyard game
Yeah.
of like capture the flag, but capture the cannons.
It's ridiculous.
War, when you break it down and afterwards, is like so silly sometimes.
Yeah.
Those cannons were huge, though. Gatling gun wasn't invented yet. Gatling gun got invented a year later, and then that became crazy.
Right.
Guy who invented the Gatling gun was trying to save lives. He thought if he could invent a gun that shot more bullets quicker, then you would need less soldiers, which would mean, and it would mean people who got shot died and didn't get like sick from disease and infection. So he was trying to save lives. He didn't. He ended up killing a lot more lives.
Yeah.
Good job.
Tough.
Good job, Gatling, though. Okay, so you have the Union troops, and they're retreating because the Confederacy is big and strong. These people are young soldiers. They're green. This is their first war. And I wonder even how much training they really had. A senator from Michigan tried to block the main road to Washington, while one from Ohio grabbed a gun and threatened to shoot any deserters.
Sure.
They're like overbearing parents at a football game. Like, you're not quitting. I didn't drive you to practice every day for you to quit. Because these are, so...
Yeah, they're definitely politicians that made like promises. Like, oh, we're just going to stop them over here and it won't be a problem.
Yep.
It's like, why don't you get in there, guy from Ohio?
Yes, exactly. So people think the picnickers were like families that went. No, it was reporters who had to report on it, photographers, and the congressmen who were, put it in motion, wanted to see it all. And then since people were going to be there, food vendors came and made food because they were, they brought their own food because they were thinking the Confederate locals wouldn't offer them food because they're now rivals.
Right.
So the picnic term is loosely used, but they were there. There were civilians there.
It was a viewing.
It was a viewing, yeah. Henry Wilson, a senator from Massachusetts and a future vice president, took pity on the fleeing soldiers and passed out sandwiches as they passed by, just like a marathon passing out water.
Good job. Good job. Good effort.
I can't imagine going to my first battle, thinking, like, having no idea what it's going to be. Everyone's dying around me. There's blood everywhere. People are yelling, screaming. The Confederates, this is real. Scared for your life. Running the fuck away as fast as you possibly. Yes, thank you, sir. I am hungry. I'll take that sandwich.
I'd love that sandwich. Yeah. I'm guessing these guys were hungry. The day's a win.
Yeah, well, we lost 1,200 people. Guy next to me got his head blown off by a cannonball, but that sandwich at the end really tied it together well. Thank you,
I'm alive. Good sandwich.
Thank you, Senator from Massachusetts. You've really turned this day around. Confederate forces were in too much disarray to go after the Yankee army, although rebel soldiers took a congressman, Alfred Ely of New York, prisoner.
Nice. First prisoner?
First prisoner, I'm guessing. Well,
Alfred Ely.
No, there had to be prisoners during the battle, but first civilian prisoner for sure, I would guess.
How do during battle prisoners work?
You just give up. Hand up.
Yeah, but like, what do? Do they just put them? Are there like 5 guys that guard the prisoners with guns?
Again, this seems a lot like capture the flag. Just a big square. I mean,
I'm picturing jailhouse dodgeball, where you put the kidnapped people in the back. But like, that has to be part of your mission. If you're the other team, is to like free your soldiers, so you have the 10 captured soldiers back.
I'm guessing they had a designated house, or they brought him to the back with guards and stuff for a serious guess. But I don't really know.
That's weird. Then you have your guys who have been dubbed your worst fighters as basically the guards of the kidnapped.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm interested in that.
So out of more than 28,000 Union soldiers at the First Battle of Bull Run, 2,800 were killed, wounded, missing, or captured. So what? That's 10%?
You're my numbers guy.
2,800 of 28,000. Yeah, 10%.
Yeah.
That's not that bad, I feel like. I don't know the going rate for murder wounded. I know that this was the bloodiest battle on American soil ever at the time.
It's kind of nuts.
Only to be outdone relatively quickly.
Right.
Gettysburg. One of the more than 38,000 Confederates, there were over 1,900 casualties. So the Confederates did a lot better. The battle showed Congress and President Abraham Lincoln that the Civil War would be much lengthier and tougher than they'd anticipated.
Looks like it, yeah.
Yeah. So they did, but the Confederates did not advance into northern soil.
We just won the war. We won the battle.
They won the battle. They made the Union flee, which is a crazy start. People were really had no idea what was going on. The Union was there's this guy McClellan. He's probably the LVP of the Union Army, least valuable player, and he was in charge. Ulysses S. Grant eventually took over. Lincoln had a lot of trouble replacing McClellan, but he just wouldn't do anything. People said he was vying to become president next and didn't want to risk it. And Lincoln would tell him you have to advance. He just wouldn't advance.
Come on, McClellan.
That's we can get into that more in different battles. So the picnic rumors, they didn't actually picnic. They were just congressmen, but it's a scene when you have one congressman got taken captive, one congressman's handing out sandwiches as if that's going to fix the problem.
He's fixing hunger, Jim. Okay, we all have our own battles.
One grabs a gun and threatens to shoot the guys on his side. You can't retreat. I'll shoot you. That's why we're retreating. I'm going to retreat from you.
Yeah, either way, retreating.
It's pretty good. That's what the Confederates are doing, sir.
We're running away from thousands of guys who are going to shoot us. Why would we care that just you are threatening to shoot us?
That's so fucking stupid. Sir, they're just threatening to shoot us, and we're running away.
You stay here, buddy. We're going to keep going.
You're threatening to shoot us if we don't stay for the other guys threatening to shoot us. That makes no sense. That's pretty funny. Good laugh from that. All right.
Here's a sandwich.
Don't listen to him. Don't listen to this congressman from Michigan. My name is blah blah from Massachusetts. Take this sandwich.
It's a weird day.
Super weird day. All right. Now this is a good story, Jake. Ready? We're going to pivot to a man named Travail. That's not his name. The man named Wilmer McLean.
Okay.
Wilmer McLean was a farmer that lived in Virginia. Okay. Now, the trivia quote that surrounds this man's name is the war started and stopped on his land, which is true.
Kind of cool.
But I'm going to go a little more in depth. This is a book written by someone Davis. It's from the 60s.
Jefferson.
Burke Davis. So that's the source material. Okay. Major Wilmer McLean might well have said, as tradition has it, the war began in my front yard and ended in my parlor. McLean, a well-to-do wholesale grocer from Alexandria, had retired in 1854 to a pleasant estate along Bull Run, near Manassas Junction in Prince William County, Virginia. He had made many improvements on the plantation, including a massive stone barn. The place was known as Yorkshire, for the home county of a previous owner, Colonel Richard Blackburn, a migrant Englishman. Okay, so McLean lives at Yorkshire. He's retired grocer. Blah, blah. He has a nice stone house.
Nice digs, yeah.
Roads in the neighborhood led to the nearby rail line and important villages, and several crossed Bull Run not far from the farmhouse. One of these crossings was McLean's Ford. In May 1861, the line of Bull Run was occupied by Confederate troops to guard against an expected Federal thrust from Washington. Many regiments camped on or near Yorkshire, and Camp Wigfall was established on the southernmost acres. So they're setting up camp all around his land and property. Just behind McLean's Ford and on the other side, General J.R. Jones had his brigade raise earthworks, which remain today, though much reduced by bulldozers. I don't know what that means. Raise earthworks?
No idea.
Tents, maybe? No, tents can't remain today. Though much reduced by bulldozers amid a housing development known as Yorkshire Village. I have to Google
Sure.
earthworks. Does he mean like trenches?
Earthworks. I got nothing.
Okay. They're basically like trenches. Like they built... Yeah, they're trenches. They're trenches.
Okay.
They're enough like trenches to just call them trenches.
Sure.
Okay. On July 18th, when Federals approached the site, General Beauregard, the Confederate commander, left his headquarters at a nearby farmhouse and went to Yorkshire. The general was riding the front lines at noon of the day when a Union shell dropped into a chimney of the McLean house, fell into the kitchen fireplace, and immediately exploded a kettle of stew.
Oh, no.
Now, my question here, my brain was like, why was the stew under the fireplace? Then I was like, well, of course, they need the fireplace to get the stew hot.
That's how you cook, yeah.
Then my question was, how often were birds shitting in the stew?
So birds going in the fireplace. I think you probably took a lot better care of your fireplace back in the day because that was your thing. Like a fireplace became an afterthought. It was like you clean it once a year, you have a guy come through, make sure your house doesn't catch on fire. I feel like back in the day, you were routinely checking on your chimney for birds and critters and stuff like that.
Maybe the brick's too hot for the birds to land on so they won't poop in it. Seems like stuff can get in your stew pretty easily. And when the war's around, you get shrapnel in your stew.
Yeah. Bummer.
The stew splattered over the room, and the luncheon menu for the general, his staff, and the McLean household was revised. They ruined the stew. The casualties from this fight from the Battle of Bull Run were placed in McLean's big barn, but officers were forced to move them when Union gunners shelled the place. So now he's a hospital. Now they're shelling his place.
Right.
Beauregard commented bitterly on an enemy treatment of the McLean barn, saying that it was surmounted by the usual yellow hospital flag. I hope for the sake of the past associations that it was ignorantly mistaken for a Confederate flag, because you shouldn't be shooting hospitals. There are rules to war. Civil.
Okay. Yeah.
Basically, McLean had enough. He's like, this sucks. My stew's getting ruined. You're putting dead people in my barn. They're shooting the barn. I'm fucking out of here.
This is no win for me.
Yeah, nothing about this is fun. I just was trying to retire. I didn't like being a grocer anymore.
Didn't want the Civil War on my property.
There's a very real inconvenience. So McLean had enough, and when the armies had gone, he bought a farm in isolated southern Virginia, its red brick house fronting a street in the village of Appomattox Courthouse. The McLean family seems to have lived peacefully for 3 years in the new home, where back at Yorkshire, armies crossed Bull Run and the familiar fields in the Second Manassas Campaign. So if he stayed, he would have seen more war, right?
Sure.
4 years later, the war catches up with Wilmer McLean on April 9th, 1865. So now they're at Appomattox. If you know the Civil War, you know that that's where the surrender happened.
Right. 4 years later?
Yeah.
Okay.
The major was walking in the village street, probably alarmed at the number of Confederate troops lying near his home, now that the early morning fire had ceased. A young officer in a worn gray uniform hailed him, asking for a place where General Lee might meet with General Grant. So Robert E. Lee and Ulysses Grant are meeting to work out surrender.
Sure.
Two huge people.
Right.
So McLean shows the officer an unoccupied brick building in the center of the village. He's like, I already had my house run up. This is an empty building. Why don't you guys just...
Why don't you guys do it in my barn with the dead bodies you left there?
Yeah, my old house.
Would you want to do it there? Don't mind the holes in the wall from your shooting.
If you want some stew, there's probably some left in the crevices of the brick. But he's not at that house anymore, so he's in a new house. So what the fuck? He shows him this empty barn. He's like, do it here. Have your meeting here. And there's no furniture or anything. So the Lee's guy's like, isn't there someplace else? And McLean took him to his home just west of the courthouse. It's lawn shaded by trees. Its white picket fence sagging, probably the result of the morning's action. His nice new house away from the war. Marshall followed McLean into the parlor and approved. So they're like, this is it. The parlor of your new house. So General Lee, Babcock, and himself, and they sat down in McLean's parlor and talked in the most friendly and affable way. By 4 p.m., it was all over. Lee and Grant rode away, and the looting of his house began.
Come on.
They knew.
Tough break.
They knew it was a big moment. So, like, isn't that crazy that the soldiers at the time knew, like, wow, this is history right here?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. Sports fans do that stuff too.
They do. When
stealing a seat from the stadium and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. So the McLean family was besieged by officers from Federals to buy souvenirs. Many pressed greenbacks upon Major McLean, who protested that he did not wish to sell anything.
Guys, I just want to live in my house.
General Sheridan bought, in quotes, the table on which surrender terms were written and donated it to his wife of General Custer. It is now in the Smithsonian. General Ord got the table upon which Grant and Lee signed the terms, and it is today at the Chicago Historical Society. Some officers, chiefly of cavalry, tried to buy chairs used by Lee and Grant, and when they refused, took them off on horseback anyway. So they're like offering to buy it, and McLean's like, no, I don't want to sell my furniture. Okay, we'll just steal it then.
I recently moved here. I really like my decor.
We've had a good run. The upholstery, all the curtains were cut into ribbons and tied around wrists and stuff. The place was destroyed. Just the house got completely destroyed. All the furniture got taken. Everything got broken apart, and they took things. There's a sketch artist went in and took a sketch of like what was going on. And here's a picture for you.
It looks like a good time.
It looks like a classic comedy scene where they're just stealing everything from this poor old man.
Right. There's the one helpless character while everything else goes on around him.
Yeah. So Wilmer McLean got a pretty bad his name's in history now. Would you trade those happenings for the story, or would you rather just they didn't happen to you?
No, I'd be okay with it not happening.
Yeah, I think it's kind of cool.
It's not like anything comes from William McLean.
Yeah,
think about the way we just told the story. His house got looted. His first property got torn up. Like it's not like it's not like he did something cool. Like it's not like it was his table and he was there to initiate the first handshake or something. Like he was probably on the side like, oh, you're going to end the war now. Ugh.
Yeah, but I just picture Wilmer McLean 10 years later with the mint julep on the front porch Sunday morning and a crowd of people, and he's saying, there they sat, Grant, Lee, right in my living room. Grant went on to be president. They sat in my living room and ended the war.
See, I just think he was a nudge, and every time he told someone a story, I had to get all new furniture, blah, 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 and the other person's like, yeah, every male in my family died. And he's like, you should have seen these chairs.
You should have... The curtains, they cut them to ribbons.
Ribbons, I said.
Something funny about the house later on. The McLean house stood until 1893 when it was carefully dismantled for removal to Washington for an exhibition, right? The financiers of the project were ruined in the panic of that year, and the materials were never reassembled. Timber, bricks, doors, and windows lay in the open until they deteriorated beyond repair.
Yeah.
Everything about this house is shitty.
Just wasn't meant to be.
Yeah. Then they, in 1948, the federal government ordered the McLean house rebuilt in an exact replica of the original using the Hubbard drawings, the guy who was there sketching things. The contractor chosen for the work was E.H. Hancock, the youngest son of the demolisher. Pretty funny. The price of the restoration was $50,000. The state of Virginia appropriated $5,000 toward furnishings, donations, and cash, and furniture came from many private sources. So they did rebuild it. So you can go look at the new one in wherever it is, Chicago Historical Society and somewhere else. So Bull Run was a battle won by the Confederates that kicked off the war.
Kickoff.
Let everyone know it was going to be a worse war. But there was some weird shit going on. You don't think about those offshoots, like the guy whose house got turned into a hospital and then shelled.
Yeah, I mean, that's a bad time. And, like, if he wasn't kind of a well-off guy, I guess he wouldn't have that property that would have been battled on. But, I don't know. It's very inconvenient.
Very inconvenient.
Super inconvenient.
But it's cool to say the war started and stopped on my property.
Yeah. Years later.
You think he got any women from this?
No. Old man. Old man. Old whiny man is what I have.
You have him as super whiny.
He wasn't getting any, oh, I know Ulysses S. Grant. We don't care, dude. Shut up.
I have him as friendly. He's a grocer, man. He's got to be friendly if you're a grocer.
I have him as a big old pushover.
Yeah.
Like, think about it. Think about those times. Like, if you were in his house and people are just grabbing stuff, like, you grab the smallest one by the throat and say, get the hell out of here, you little turd.
I don't know, man. It's like the Civil War. There are soldiers.
It's over.
What about the start?
It's his house and everyone's in front of their, like, generals.
You know what's the biggest issue? He shouldn't have been walking around that day. On Day of Surrender. Like, you got to lay low.
Yeah. That's weird. It's weird that they got him involved again.
They couldn't have known. They couldn't have known that this man had the house at Bull Run.
There had to be something symbolic there. Like, we're gonna end the war in the same place it started. Blah blah blah. They probably looked out for this guy.
I don't think so. I think it was coincidence.
I don't know about
serendipity, maybe.
Yeah, true.
Who would you rather talk to? The guy who was handing sandwiches out to the deserters, to the retreaters, or Wilmer McLean?
My relatives were part of the sandwich guy, so guaranteed.
The sandwich guy was from Massachusetts, had to be an Italian.
I mean, how many sandwiches did he have? I mean, we said that nonchalant, but we're talking about 2,800 people died. There's 28,000 warriors.
Soldiers, yeah.
How many sandwiches did he pack?
Yeah, like one sandwich. So here, take this.
Like exactly. How does that become part of the story? Because to become part of the story, it had to be more than one sandwich. It had to be more than like 10 sandwiches. Or this is how news travels over time. Like, that guy was retreating and horrified, and he had a sandwich, and he threw it to one of the soldiers. And then now we're talking about it nowadays because one of the media people, that's what they saw.
I like that part of the story. I also really like the guy holding his gun and say, don't retreat. I'll shoot you.
Good, dude. You stay here. There's guys coming for you.
I did not realize how funny that is until we started talking about it here. All right, so that's the start of that's the Battle of Bull Run, and we will get more into some more fun stuff from the Civil War as we go on. We got Stonewall Jackson. I've talked about him. I got to do some more research. There was bands galore, dude. dude. The Civil War was probably the world's largest concert.
Ooh, interesting.
The Civil War is probably the largest American concert.
I like that.
Yeah, we'll talk about bands later on, but there you go. Also got my Gatling gun fact in here. Guy wanted to save lives, so he made the deadliest gun possible.
Same with the A-bomb. What?
No, that was just
Not really.
that was just the U.S. being really fucked up.
Yup.
They get such a pass for that. Like Americans give themselves such a pass. What a terrible thing.
Yeah, it was bad. It did bad.
This is real.
Let's not dwell on it.
It's really bad. All right. Thank you guys very much. If you're enjoying this, leave some ratings or just subscribe to the show. Tell your friends like, hey, want to learn some stuff while laughing. And there's no test at the end, so you don't have to memorize it. Just enjoy some stories about sandwiches being handed out during the Civil War. That'd be great. We did get a listener submission of one of his relatives, a story about that at the end, story about his relative during this time, which is pretty interesting. Thank you for sending that in. If you guys have any of those, send those in, because after the 10-episode season, we're going to do kind of like a bonus episode where Q&A. So remember to ask questions. If you have any, you can tweet them at me at johnboy_ or at Jake at Talkin' Jake. You can email them to, I don't know if we have an email yet. talkinyanks@gmail you could use, or you could
Twitter.
leave.
Find you on Twitter.
Yeah, or leave them as a review. So at the end, we're going to do bonus episode. And that's where I'll tell some of the personal anecdotes or extras that we find. So thank you guys very much. This is Laughs from the Past, the Civil War. North versus the South is the main players.
So true.
Favorite thing you learned on this episode, Jake?
Favorite thing I learned in this episode. I don't know. It's some guy that doesn't have a role in history now does, because his house got ransacked for the war.
That's such a funny, weird thing. All right, we're out. See you guys.